going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. In today's video, I wanted to talk a little bit about progression within MLB The Show franchise mode, specifically on MLB The Show 24 today. I want to talk about two important topics as far as progression is related. The first of those topics is in regards to the progression system within the game and some of its shortcomings. And the second topic is in relation to putting too much weight on progression and development ratings within MLB The Show. We're going to primarily showcase one player here today, Harold Ramirez, a first baseman, because he is a perfect representation of both of these topics. The first of these topics, like I said, is the progression system and some of its shortcomings. Harold Ramirez is a fantastic player within MLB The Show. He comes in as a 29-year-old, somewhere in the mid-70s, and see potential, but that lends him to being an often overlooked player. The progression system is also going to overlook him, and the way that the progression system works is that it's trying to get a player to their progression number that's associated with them in their ratings. So Harold Ramirez, for example, if we edit him and go to his attributes, his batting attributes, his potential is a 75. So roughly around the time that he's 30, 31 years old, the game is going to try to have him be a 75 overall, or right around a 75 overall. Likewise, that's how the progression is going to work for everybody else. It's going to be trying to get players to that progression number, and that is primarily what drives progression. What I would like to pose to you guys as a big pitfall or shortcoming of the progression system is that there is not a ton of room for flexibility. Sure, a player can go up in development in potential, a player can go up and down in overall, but it's not a massive change very often, and it is not necessarily associated with actual performance like it should be in a lot of cases. Harold Ramirez, and the reason I want to talk about this, led the league in batting average in this first season. He won the Silver Slugger for first base, and he was the first baseman for the All-Star team. He was a absolute monster on the season, batting .321, best in the league, and hitting 25 home runs. He was maybe the best player on our team, if not one of the best players in all of MLB. The problem that I'm getting at here is that nothing really changed for Harold Ramirez whenever this happened. We can take a look at his attributes and see that a couple of things changed. He did get a few positives to his contact versus righties, a little bit to his power, a little bit to his vision, his discipline, and he even lost some ratings in certain areas, which in and of itself is not necessarily the issue. But the issue is that he didn't, at least on his own, go up to a B potential. As an example, he didn't go up to an 80-something overall player. Typically, the way that I like to think about it is if a player performed with those stats, what would they be rated going into that year's MLB? So in MLB The Show 25, if Harold Ramirez in the actual MLB hit 25 home runs, batted .321, what would his rating be and his potential be in MLB The Show 25? It would likely be somewhere in the mid-80s with B to A potential, especially if he led the league in batting average, especially if he was on the MVP ballot, if he was a Silver Slugger, had the batting title, had an All-Star appearance, he would be rated much better. And so the point here is, number one, that the system is not perfect in any way, shape, or form in terms of progressing players necessarily the way they should. It is very uniform, especially when it comes to ages and potentials. I mean, it is very straightforward how it works, and there is no room for big jumps and big improvements in a player. And so the second side of that specific argument is that it makes it necessary sometimes to edit players and help progress them where the system cannot. And really, I just want to get to a recommendation for you guys playing franchise mode that you don't have to adhere strictly to the development system within the game. The edit players capability is there for a reason. Now, it's going to be hard to be consistent with this and go around the league and do these things, but here and there, doing this for your team is not a bad thing because, again, Harold Ramirez, after a season like that, should be a much better overall and a much better potential. And so you would be justified in correcting that for a system that is deficient in doing that in and of itself. That leads me to point number 2 of today's video, however, that it's not necessarily necessary to do anything like that. And it's not necessarily necessary to go through and prioritize development potential and overall. Now, of course, higher overall players are going to have better ratings. Better rated players are going to perform better, especially in user versus user play. But Harold Ramirez is, again, the perfect example of a player that doesn't have to be a high overall to just be a really good player. Now, sure, he might be a bit more of a DH type of a player because his fielding capabilities are very low, but I think you could still get away with playing him daily at the first base position. And you would excel with this guy as a 77 overall far more than some other position players because he has 99 contact versus left, 83 contact versus right, solid power in both sides, solid vision, 90 batting clutch, and decent speed, 62 speed. So that is a monstrous player at the plate in franchise mode. And those are ratings that you'll often see on a 90+ overall player. You don't often actually even get a guy that's that good on both sides of the plate. And so I just kind of wanted to highlight that it's not necessarily always the most important thing to be looking at potential age and overall, because Harold Ramirez is going to be very serviceable for multiple years still within franchise mode. And he's not the only guy that's like that. There are numbers and numbers of those players out there. In fact, all the time I'm playing with the Pirates and other low-end teams, and I have to start guys like this in my lineup, and I'm happy to do so because, I mean, you compare him to Vladdy Jr., and really, Harold Ramirez is a better bat. He's got better clutch. He's got better contact on both sides. I think he's got similar vision. The only thing that's different is that Vladdy has better power on both sides, and you know, a little bit better defensive capability. What does that matter at the first base position? These players are going to be more available at certain positions. So first base is one of those where like defense doesn't matter so much. I mean, you can get away with a low fielding player because they're not going to drop the ball that often. Now, you don't want to go too low. Harold Ramirez might be a little bit too low, but you can get away with that. And the other thing that makes up for it sometimes that makes a player really good is their quirks. So Harold Ramirez is an example of a player that has a bunch of really good quirks on them. Pinch hitter, breaking ball hitter, dead red, road warrior, day player, unfazed, all are going to make him better at the plate. And so that's going to allow for a performance like you saw here with a 321 batting average. It just makes them a really good player. I'm actually quite surprised, to be honest with you, that he's rated as low as he is and not with like B potential or something within this roster based on his prior year's performances as well. So maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe he is truly just like a DH player. As you can see, he doesn't have big power numbers prior to his, you know, fake season with my team. So it is something that is interesting to consider. But I wanted to make this video because I was going through franchise mode. And I mean, like I said, he's not the only one. I signed Josh Bell for a very similar reason. I mean, nobody wanted Josh Bell in free agency, and I was very happy to acquire him because he's got great contact on both sides, provides a good bit of power, good vision, and good clutch, and that's what I need in a first base or a DH. I don't need much else other than that. And sure, I have Vladdy, but that was a trade pickup, so you know, I'm able to bring these guys in as rotational platoon type players that are going to be fantastic anytime I'm trying to use them. And oftentimes you'll see players like that coming through the draft and through other teams, and you'll be able to acquire them for really cheap. I mean, I was able to get this guy, Joey Hafey. I don't think this is a real guy. I'm pretty sure that this is a generated prospect. And he's got 77 plus contact on both sides. He's got good power against lefties, good vision, good clutch, a good arm. I mean, really, all you need on this guy is fielding and reaction, and that'll come in time. And sure, he's C potential, but like this guy's immediately a starter at the MLB level, especially in franchise mode, especially if you're user controlling him. So I said, you know, I'm going to go out and get that guy, and he's going to be a fantastic platoon player for me. And he's only 22 years old. So, you know, I'll be able to sign him to a long-term contract, and I'll have a fantastic bat in my lineup for 8+ years in franchise mode, if I ever get to that point. But hopefully those points kind of resonated with you guys here, you know, as we take a look at some of these players in franchise mode. The system is not perfect. I think that's the first point, and sometimes that warrants you guys doing things to take over for the system and make up for where the system lacks. But again, that also offers a challenge. You know, just because your player, you know, has crazy stats doesn't mean that he's going to go up in overall, and that provides sometimes a nice challenge for people. I mean, it's not like Madden or other sports titles where players that get, you know, padded stats just automatically become good. And I think that that has some value in and of itself. And I think that there's also value in considering that, you know, players don't have to be a 99 overall or a 90+ A potential guy in order to be worth something to you in franchise mode or in this game in general. Like I said, Harold Ramirez is a perfect example of that, having just absolutely crazy batting stats and quirks that make him unstoppable at the plate for you. But with that being said, hopefully you found this video informative or enjoyable in some way. And if you did, please leave a like. I'd like to see you guys comment down below as well. Do you guys look for these types of players? Do you look for players with quirks? Do you look for players that maybe have, you know, specific stats that'll help you at the plate or things like that, you know, what I would consider hidden gem type players within franchise mode? And how much stock do you really put in higher overalls and higher potentials? And finally, do you guys try to compensate for the weaknesses in the development system within the game? Would you, after Harold Ramirez has a season like this, increase his overall or his potential or his ratings or anything like that? Or would you just leave him and let it be the challenge that it is? I'm really curious to hear what your thoughts are. As always, like I said, leave that feedback down below. I'll see you in the next video, and I hope you have a good one.